Hey everyone. Well, this is a continuation of Could I Forgive Master? This is chapter 5, and I don't know if you guys remember, but in the last chapter, one of the things that mostly stood out to me was that Mr. Gunn was super suspicious of Vegas, and he had a hunch that Vegas had a crush on the cook's grandson, Pete, and he didn't like that one bit. Because, as you know, Mr. Gunn is super image concerned. He's image obsessed. And he didn't really want anybody to know like that his son was a raging homosexual. And he honestly just wanted to compete with his brother, Vegas's uncle, about having a straight son and marrying rich and keeping the wealth within the family. All of those things. So he was not pleased with the idea of Vegas potentially having a crush on any guy, including the cook's grandson, especially him. So I could peep that there was going to be something brewing in this chapter. So let's find out, shall we? Okay. Mr. Gunn continued to question his son. It's not hard to guess what happened. After all, Pete really is frail. You can immediately see how vulnerable he is. Vegas seemed irritated after hearing those statements. He did not like the way his father spoke about Pete, as if he was unimportant. The days that followed were difficult for Vegas as a result of those remarks made by his father. He felt both depressed and enraged. Ken, his cousin, noticed something was worrying him. To be honest, he had a pretty good idea of what was going on. Everyone in the house had heard about what had occurred to the cook's grandson. As a result, Ken felt certain that his uncle must have done something to irritate Vegas in such a way. So, Ken made the decision to approach his cousin one morning. Vegas was walking in the garden when the older man joined him. After some friendly chit-chat, he decided to discuss the topic openly. I understand that we have to honor our parents and all that, but I don't think they're always right, you know? Ken said to Vegas, placing his hand on his shoulder in a consoling gesture. Our parents have these weird views about how things should be. For example, they encourage us to fight over silly customs that divide the family into two groups, one of which is supposedly more important than the other. They want us to fight in a pointless war. Ken was only a few years older than Vegas. That was probably why he appeared so mature at times. They run the family and the family business now, you know? Ken said with a smile. But we will take control in a few years. You only need to be wise and patient. Then he looked at his cousin and smiled in a brotherly way. He was attempting to be helpful, something he knew Vegas required at the moment. His Uncle Gunn, unlike his own father, was a traditionalist who would never welcome a homosexual son into his household. Anyway, Vegas trusted his cousin so much that he confided in him about his sexuality and his anxiety over his father's rejection. Ken was eager about assisting his cousin in dealing with his father too, so he developed a plan to get him a fake girlfriend. Now, the idea didn't sit well with Vegas, but he had to admit that it could help him with some of his problems. If his father believed he had a girlfriend, he'd grant him more freedom and space. So, as a result, Ken coordinated everything with one of his friends. Mary was her name. Gunn wouldn't have any reason to oppose his son's relationship because she hailed from a wealthy family. Now, as far as Pete, he learned about Vegas's new girlfriend while assisting his grandmother in the kitchen. One of the maids was having breakfast when she mentioned the news. Pete's mind went blank as soon as he heard those words. Was that true? Was Vegas dating someone? His grandmother immediately met his eyes. Even though she tried her hardest to persuade her grandson about his crush, she felt she'd failed miserably. So, when she heard the news, she was concerned because she knew how adversely it would affect her grandchild. Pete worked extremely hard to keep his emotions hidden after the initial shock. After all, everyone at home had known about his boyhood crush since he was a small child. He definitely hadn't been very good at concealing it. Pete's grandma, she was perplexed as to why those maids felt compelled to make such a remark in the sight of her grandson. They most likely did it because they were aware of his boyhood crush and wanted to see how he reacted. Those wicked witches, she thought. Pete seemed to agree, so he didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing him cry. So, as a result, he simply pretended that nothing had happened. Nonetheless, his performance nearly fell apart when he learned that Vegas's girlfriend had been invited to dine at the house. Well, that's ridiculous. How could that happen? They're too young to have any kind of serious relationship. Vegas is only 19. How could Master Gunn possibly think of hosting her for dinner? He kept wondering. In private, Pete's grandmother listened carefully to what he had to say about it. She made the choice not to respond, but she understood deep down that Mr. Gunn's every decision had a hidden goal. So, she reasoned that if he wanted to bring the girl for dinner, it had to be for a reason. She didn't want to think about it too much, but actually, she was worried about it. Later that week, she received confirmation of her suspicion when Mr. Gunn himself asked that her grandson was there at the dinner as part of the staff. That request was obviously out of the ordinary. Mr. Gunn had never asked anything like that before. In any case, Pete was like used to assisting her in the kitchen, but he'd never actually engaged in a formal dinner like that one. She was naturally concerned. Pete's face became pale when she told him about the demand, but why was Mr. Gunn requesting his assistance during dinner? Pete knew nothing about assisting others. His grandmother attempted to calm him down. I'm not sure why he's asking you to help, but since we live in his house and we work for him, you'll have to. Pete accepted his fate without any further delay, so he prepared to help in the great occasion. So, that evening, he was dressed in the white suit that had been given to him. He was actually very uncomfortable in it because he was not used to wearing such garments. The maids gently taught him his job during dinner, and he was instructed to remove the filthy dishes from the table as soon as the visitors finished dining. He felt it would be a simple assignment, so he was confident. Pete noted that there were a lot of people at the table as the dinner started. Vegas was taken aback when he saw Pete wearing his white uniform. What was he doing there, dressed as if he was a member of the staff? Vegas was wondering. However, he was aware that his father was scrutinizing him, so he made every effort to conceal his surprise. See, during dinner, Pete thought he was doing a good job. His performance was nearly flawless, but unfortunately, an incident occurred after dessert that changed everything for the worst. And that concludes this chapter of Could I Forgive Master? And based off of what I just, narrated for you guys, I have a few points that, or talking points that stood out to me throughout the entire chapter. Like, for example, one of the things or one of the themes that stood out to me was family conflict and obviously support in difficult times. So, in the beginning of the chapter, like Mr. Gunn, he made really assholish, insensitive remarks about Pete's vulnerability to Vegas, and it obviously upset Vegas a lot. And it upset him so bad to the point where he got depression and developed like anger issues because of it. And Vegas's cousin, Ken, he noticed that Vegas was stressed out. He wasn't acting the way he normally used to. And he just extended a familial shoulder to him and basically trying to relate to him like, hey, I know that we're supposed to be quote unquote family rivals or whatever, but you'll always have a family in me, despite what our fathers want us to think and do in regards to the family and business, right? And then Ken also encouraged Vegas to be patient and wise, like reassuring him that one day they'll be the ones taking over the business. So, not to pay too much attention to his father, just keep his head screwed on tight and go through the motions and just wait his turn, basically. And another thing that stood out to me was, Vegas's ability to confide in Ken about his sexuality and his fears of rejection from his dad. And that ultimately led Ken to devise a plan that involves like a fake girlfriend to get rid of some of Vegas's struggles. And how do I feel about Vegas getting a fake girlfriend? Honestly, Mary, I believe is her name. Honestly, I thought that Ken knew that Mary was a lesbian or something. Because let's be for real, not many women would agree to be a fake girlfriend to someone. At least I think Ken told Mary that Vegas is gay. So it naturally led me to believe that maybe Mary's a lesbian on the low. And they're both gladly using each other to skate under their parents' radar. Honestly, I don't blame you. Like, do what you gotta do to live your life until you can get the bag, I suppose. And another point that stood out to me was how the news of Vegas's fake girlfriend and how it reached Pete, who's obviously now confused and concerned about their relationship. So naturally, Pete was going to feel super fucking depressed and feel like he is missing out on something. I mean, how come everybody but him knew that Vegas was seeing somebody at all in the first place? And yeah, Pete was trying to hide his emotions after a very difficult and spiteful revelation about his crush on Vegas, which was caused by like the other coworkers or the other maids in the house. We've all met people before where they're just spiteful as fuck and wanted to tell you things that have nothing to do with you, but they knew that if there's a possibility that it could hurt you, like they want to spill the beans to you anyway. And his grandma was confused about why the maids even did that in the first place, seeing as though she's super protective of her grandson's feelings. But typical workplace mushmouth BS. There's always going to be someone or a group of people um, trying to use information about you against you and whatnot. So, with that being said, she pretended like she didn't really see or hear Pete's concerns about Pete learning about Vegas's new girlfriend. And I guess the situation finally took a turn when Pete found out that Vegas's girlfriend's invited to dinner. And of course, that also raised concern about their young relationship, as they should. I mean, they're only 19. What the hell is a rush, right? So, Pete's grandma, rightfully so, suspected that Mr. Gunn had motives for the dinner invitation. And it was because, like, he made an unusual request for Pete to help in the dinner, which is something he's never done before. So, all of a sudden, why now? Especially on the night of Vegas bringing Mary over after Gunn invited them. Pretty odd, and naturally, she was concerned about what kind of tricks he had up his sleeves, of course. And the other theme that stood out to me was like this expectation of help at dinner, right? So when Pete was there, he was definitely anxious about being asked to assist Mr. Gunn during dinner. And he was naturally unsure about why he was even asked in the first place. Now, as we can all put two and two together, Mr. Gunn is probably trying to invite Pete around during dinner to dangle him as bait in front of Vegas just to see what Vegas would say. I'm already assuming that Mr. Gunn, he's a manipulative prick, so he's probably, and this is just an assumption here, haven't read the other chapters yet. But my assumption is that he's trying to invite Pete around and purposely act really mean towards Pete to see like how Vegas would act, or he'd probably try to be super nice to Mary and maybe imply that Vegas and Mary like do some stuff. Ugh, ew. But do some stuff just so Pete could watch. I don't know. But it doesn't sound like I'm too far off with those assumptions anyway. Anyway, um, it was around dinner time and Pete, he was dressing uncomfortably in a very unfamiliar white suit. And as Pete was preparing to help remove like the dirty dishes after the meal, um, he was believing the whole time that he was managing his responsibilities pretty well. And of course, the haters, like the other coworkers, were surprised about what he was doing, especially because they were gossiping about Vegas and his new girlfriend and how it would probably make Pete feel. You know, Pete was rightfully minding his business and rightfully um, acting like he's not bothered. He told himself that he was not about to let these bitches see him sweat. And same, Pete, same. So after like dessert, an unexpected incident happened that kind of messed the dinner up, and it changed the positive atmosphere that Pete had built for himself. So then, um, hmm, what else stood out to me in the entire chapter? Hmm. I think that's it so far. That's it. Yeah, an unexpected incident happened during dinner. And like I previously mentioned in my analysis, that I think that Gunn probably brought Pete around and was hoping that some messy shit was going to go down. And the dinner, and Pete accidentally, doing something to fuck shit up. It was something that Gunn was hoping for. So, like I said, maybe he's going to prey on the situation and see how Vegas would act. I'm guessing Mr. Gunn wants to see if Vegas is going to jump up and offer Pete's assistance, which would be very sus because Pete's supposed to be the quote unquote help. So why is he being so helpful and forward towards Pete, right? Um, I don't know. There's so many speculations I could make, but I am dying to see what the next chapter is on about and what could possibly come out of it. Gunn is really messy as fuck, and so are his employees. But I'm just curious to see what's going to happen next after Pete had the accident. And yeah, that's it for my narration and my analysis so far. I genuinely hope you guys enjoyed it. And I'll definitely see you guys next time or talk to you guys next time. And if there's anything at all that you relate to in this chapter or something that you want to add in terms of your analysis, let me know in the comments. I would love to see them and respond. Yeah, so see you guys next time. Bye.